Excellent. Okay. So everyone, this is Olivia Bolt, and I'm so glad and excited that you're here. This is amazing.
Yeah, me too.
I was just talking about you before you entered the room because breathwork, I think, is like the fundamental tool that I use to help me heal through my lowest points. And it's the thing that I go back to over and over again. And it also exists a little bit in that, but that's all I'm going to say. I would love to know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name's Olivia. I would call myself a somatic practitioner, but I think at least in my algorithm that's like too vague. And so very recently I've adopted just owning my own modality called somatic strength training. So I can delve in wherever feels relevant, but I've had my own kind of spiritual awakening, and of course, it's a process forever. But I think that hitting, because I worked so long through my first, I would say, round of emotional healing was like growing. I'm 30, so I would also say it's relevant to like where I was at in my Saturn return and kind of like the beliefs and archetypes I held for myself as a child moving into adulthood. I think very specifically neurodivergent women, like not to exclude anybody, but I feel like there's this shared lived experience of these like very complex, deep understanding of self from a young age. Like the eldest daughter syndrome I hear is like sometimes describes it well, but like this just feeling of feeling like an outlier, feeling of feeling a little bit discombobulated. Um, I never really felt at home in my body because I was so at home with myself as an individual, like person being. And so feeling out of sorts with myself put me on this kind of like unique path for self-discovery that I think a lot of us have this shared experience of like wanting to be a generational cycle breaker and not have these like past haunts of a confused self-identity, especially when you're unmasking. Like we can go down that rabbit hole, but like realizing like, holy shit, how much of my life was just performative and a coping mechanism for my environment. And really, I have always known who I am, but like being comfortable to get to that point of really embodying who I am in the world is such a reckoning when you are masking all the time. And so I think like hitting burnout was huge because I could no longer mask. And I think that you probably can relate to that. Um, but
Definitely.
my career started basically in weight loss for people who were chronically under eating. So like tricking women who thought they needed a diet into eating more and like losing weight because they were actually like not starving anymore. And so that led me down the path of understanding gut health and the gut brain axis because I was so curious about my mental illness and my mental health, and how that connected to my like emotional side of eating and food and my body and dysmorphia and dysphoria and all of that stuff. So I got kind of like backwards into fitness because then that led me down the path of figuring out how to take care of my gut so that I could work on my mental health and have just even the bandwidth to address my trauma because I couldn't even access my trauma because I was so burnt out in all other areas of my life. That like when people tell me like I can't yeah, no shit, it's my mom. Like, no shit, it's this, but like I can't even go there right now because I'm trying to not have insomnia before work every day of my life. Like I have real problems. And so I started figuring out like what pulling the thread, like what's the root cause of all of this, and like where can I actually give myself bandwidth, slow down. Like I can't keep doing the burnout thing, I can't keep masking, but like I want to function and live in a way that just like feels aligned with me and supports me. That led me down cycle syncing and hormones. And so like in all of that, I realized a huge trauma response and coping mechanism for me was dissociation.
Mhm.
And in understanding that, I feel like I was able to see so many fellow me's like so many women out there, so many people who are marginalized, so many people who are just like kind of thrown into you know more than you can do. And so there's this like gap between where you are and where you want to be. And um, I learned about dissociation and then I started learning about how to breathe and how to root myself back in my body and how to buckle up for whatever was going to come up because I think that's the apprehension people have around like understanding breath work to the extent that like, oh, it works, it's going to stir something up, but like nobody wants to go there and know what that's going to be. Or I think a lot of it has to do with fear of presence of holding space for those things that are going to come up that we have big feelings around. And so I wanted to develop a way of doing it that didn't I had so many big catharsis moments in coming into my body. And I think it encouraged burnout. I wasn't ready to hold everything.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to create a modality that actually taught de-escalation and down-regulation and safety first in the body and comfortability with the body and an open dialect with the body so that then we can rewire neural pathways for safety in the body rather than safety out of the body
Yes.
first before pushing a catharsis, before a crazy somatic retreat where you're shaking and having this thing that's just going to then push more dissociation on a dysregulated nervous system. I wanted to make healing like a friendly, communicative process of like slowly creating embodiment.
Yeah.
And I do it in the form of breath work and strength training as a way of then also rewiring neural pathways. Like when you load muscle, when you put stress on purpose on the body and you show your body that it's safe, like you're actually rewiring your whole nervous system for this like different modality of safety. That's super. There's a lot there, but I figure you could take that and drive in whatever direction you want to drive in.
Oh, that was fantastic. There's so much to work with there. And I also want to say that before we scheduled this Zoom, we had a one-on-one together. And one, it was so powerful. Like it helped me to create just that little, because of course, this is an ongoing practice, but the one session gave me that little extra space I needed to feel safe enough to have like a very vulnerable conversation with someone. And I wondered afterward, like, where did that come from? Because it just didn't even seem like me. And I realized I think it created a little extra safety in my body. And the other thing you'll know is that I've been having a lot of abdominal pain for like a little bit over a month. And when we had our session, within like 20 or 30 minutes into it, the pain stopped, which by the way, I discovered was a blockage from chia seeds. Soak your chia seeds before you eat them, or you could have a blockage.
But for like also a very real pain.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, but enough about that. I wanted to ask you, for someone who's never tried breath work before, what actually happens during a session? How does it go?
So there's lots of different modalities for breath work. I am approaching breath work as a concept on a very, very like low barrier to entry, the easiest way possible, what feels manageable. For neurodivergent people, I think it's also understanding that like what might be one spoon for someone is like 12 spoons for me, maybe, right? Like everyone has their way of rationing, but like if we're really getting down to it and saying like, tell me about breath work, it's just breathing. Just attune to your breath. If you can only do that for 10 seconds a day, that's where you want to start. So there's so many different modalities of breath work. In my classes, in my sessions, I'm teaching breath work in a way that feels educational for why we're doing it. So rather than trying to clear your mind of all thoughts and really like start thinking about what you have to do tomorrow. Um, I'm teaching like where your diaphragm is and where your pelvis actually becomes a really important tool for your breath and helping you find those parts of your body with your mind's eye is a way of creating this mind-body connection where you can have that safety. You're finding your edges of where you actually can attune to your breath.
Mm,
People that are living in fight or flight, I theorize. For me, at least, I can say like I could feel the difference between just kind of hovering outside of myself versus, okay, I actually now feel the air in my face. I actually can now feel air in my chest. I actually can now attune to my rib cage and getting air into my rib cage. And for whatever reasons, everyone has different reasons, and everyone's bodies are going to have different accommodations and orientations. But different places in the body can be blocked from breath. And so, really, the way I approach breath work is helping people find what are those edges of where I can expand and breathe into my body. And ideally, you're breathing completely into your body and you feel like you're taking total presence in your body. That's where instinct comes from, right? You talk about the thing with your friend. It's like, oh, where did that come from? Well, I would say it came from the breath being in your belly. Like you were able to access your actual intuition by breathing into those guts. It's real. And so there's scientific evidence behind how these muscles are the manual like lever mechanisms that turn on and off our fight or flight.
mm,
So you can actually access these programs that are running in your body just by attuning to your breath and breathing into these different spaces. So that's really what we're doing in terms of breath work. There's no for my classes at least, there's no real counts. It's much more intuitive than that. Um, because everyone's counts would be different, right? Like everyone's gonna find these different spaces and these different paces of how they want to inhale and how they want to exhale to do their own, I say, curious exploration. I like to think of it as a science experiment where we're just um, non-judgmental and just pulling data about, oh, okay, this is what I can access. This is what still feels blocked off. We talk a lot about fear. Fear is kind of like the wall. There's something behind the wall, and that something behind the wall is different for everyone, but the same for all of us is what's standing in the way is just fear of the unknown, of the unfamiliarity of it, the uncertainty. And so we're just testing the waters with teaching our nervous systems that a certain amount of chaos is safe, a certain amount of uncertainty is welcome. And that kind of brings me back to something you made me think of at the very beginning, which is like, I think all the time we get sold this idea of regulated nervous system is just like nothing really bad happening. Um, what we're intending to do with this sort of modality is just accept the chaos of the world, chaos coordinator. We're welcoming the chaos of what life looks like when it's actually spontaneous and crazy and human. It's imperfect. It doesn't go as planned. It is fear inducing, but I want to teach my nervous system that I can withhold all of that and come back to a balanced, safe place. And that's like your window of tolerance is a scientific term for it. So it's basically saying like I can withstand a certain amount of chaos and still feel safe within my being, rather than so threatened that I'm on like high alert and my digestion and mood and sleep and everything turns off because I'm locked in this place of hypervigilance. And I think that sometimes we try to curate our environment externally to feel safe, so that we don't have anything like coming in and disrupting. But that's not actually a regulated nervous system. That's just like hypervigilance with a perfectly curated environment. I mean, it doesn't leave for much life to happen.
yeah.
So that's really the end goal is like why are we accessing the breath so that we can expand our window of tolerance so that we can welcome the chaos of life and feel really safe among it.
That makes complete sense. Also, something that you'd said to me during our one-on-one session, I mentioned having like feeling pain in the lower left abdominal area, and you told me what the source could be, like the traumatic source. I think it was that
Hmm.
it could deal with the mother wound. Are there other common areas that are blocking that breathwork can help with?
Yeah. Yeah, I think people that consider themselves energy healers or light workers or Reiki people might even be able to speak more profoundly on this because I think for me it's mostly a little bit of reading Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine and a little bit of like I feel like I can just sort of spot it now. It's weird. Like maybe I'm an energy healer. I can kind of just see where the block is from studying so much of like imbalances and where things crisscross in the body. But yeah, there's I mean, science would say it's just wives' tales, right? That like right side is father's side, left side is mother's side, and it can even be switched on people. Like that's why it's more holistic. But I will say, like when I had an injury because I had a tampon lost in me, and that gave me TSS for like years. I had like serious things going on. But before I knew it was there, I somatically was dealing with the patriarchy and my religious conditioning and my sexualization and like all of this stuff that was locked up in that hip. And so I don't think it was coincidental. I will say like fear centers are in the kidneys where a lot of that lymph gets stagnant and doesn't drain properly to the front of the hip. And a lot of suppression is anywhere from like mouth, jaw to like through the neck, this like kind of crunched
Oh,
body.
yeah.
Um, Also responsibility. There's like, I remember it based on like my mnemonics, but there's real science behind how, um, like 9 out of 10 people all hold fear in the same places, all hold anger in the same places. So it's like it sounds like kind of wives' tales how I'm telling it, like stress and responsibility, but like I think about like my chest being larger growing up and like the way that I hunched
Mm-hmm.
transfers to the emotional kind of responsibility I felt on my own sexualization. And I think like the way a lot of women's pelvises tilt similarly to how they feel about their own sexuality and their own sexual health and just like security in themselves. You see that visually like trending the same direction. So yeah, like some of these things sound kind of woo-woo, but there's cool science about how people are studied and found to hold emotion in kind of the same places. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you were spot on with me. I mean, spot on. I told you my story, so I get it.
Yeah, it's definitely fun doing sessions and being like, okay. I had a lymphatic masseuse say the same thing. Like she got to my legs and she goes, "Okay, so what's your relationship like with your mom?" I was like, "Ma'am, that's not why we came here today." But it's kind of cool. Like you start to see trends over time.
Absolutely. And in terms of like new pain, like if you're in burnout or in a situation that's very painful presently, how can breath work help you?
Dude, the legs were dirty. I just saw that comment. It's like it's actually like my mom has a really, really crazy lipedema that like causes huge swelling. And I have it as well, but like she knew and she goes, "This is repressed childhood sexual abuse." It's like,
Oh, wow.
thanks. Like she just like knew it. Um, Wait, your question was when pain is at the onset.
Yeah, so and more so like emotional pain. So if you're going through a tough situation, or in burnouts, how can breath work help you? What would you suggest?
This is a really good question. And I would say two things. So like I always like the way of thinking that thoughts can't work out themselves with more thoughts. You have to get it out. But then when you apply the science of repressed emotion and how that stays on the body and changes us on a cellular level, I would say that like not doing breath work is a way of potentially suppressing your emotion because when you're doing breath work, you're like accessing what may be right under the surface.
Mhm.
And maybe instead of breath work right now, you journal, or you call a friend and talk shit, but you realize that like talking shit really is just about the validation from the other person. I always ask people like, why do you feel the need to like call someone else as soon as something happens to you?
Mm,
And usually it's to get that other person, and this is healthy to some degree. Like we as humans do this, we as women do it. It's very important for women to talk to each other. It's important for marginalized communities to talk to each other. Gossip was created as a term for people that hated us. So like
mm,
I'm not saying don't vent, but I am saying like go do your vent after processing and see how it starts changing, like how you feel when you are venting, how you feel when, because then you already have processed it. I
Mhm.
use breathwork as a means of exploring how do I actually feel about something. And then I take it to the journal, and that helps me I'm not able to identify the emotion just going straight to the journal.
Mhm.
So it's the conduit for me to figure out like, okay, what am I actually feeling about this? And then I can use my own deduction and my own interpretation, like as I'm processing, as I'm writing, I can kind of sort through how I'm feeling, and then I can stand in it. Like then I can own it and talk about it and talk about how it makes me feel. Like that is an important piece. But a lot of times we skip over that and it's just like emotion. And then especially if like you're venting to the person that's like making you feel unwell, this is how anxious and avoidant attachments happen, right? Like a secure attachment doesn't mean that someone isn't leaning anxious or leaning avoidant. My partner and I do. But like there's a step to becoming secure that's like, I'm gonna own this and validate this with myself first, and then I'm gonna figure out like what's actually important about this to me. Like, why is it so triggering?
Mhm.
First, I need to like sit with the trigger and feel the trigger and breathe through the trigger and show myself that I'm safe. I don't need that other person to meet me yet. I can meet myself here in this. And then let's sort through like why and what can be done and if it matters at all and like and
Uh,
then if it's still done like then can I take it to my partner and own like how I feel about it or my friend or my boss, you know, like pretty much anything that's any sort of conflict. Don't skip the steps in the middle, and I think breath work is a huge access point for me to figure out like really what I feel about it.
mhm. I love that because it helps you to get embodied again. And then from there, from that space, it's easier to have a conversation. Yeah, without
Well,
your own narrative of like fear, anxiety, and yeah.
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 People ask all the time, that's like a major recurring thing is like not just confidence, but like it's more so like how do you own your decision making? How do you know if you're making the right decision? How do you know what to do? And it's like if you're dissociated, you're always going to feel so afraid of making choices and pulling the trigger on action taking because you're disconnected from yourself. So you're trying to logically figure it out. You're trying to confirm and be certain about something that you cannot be certain about. The only thing you can ever be certain about is that you know nothing. Self-awareness, like peak self-awareness is admitting that like you have no certainty about anything. And certainty about anything is self-delusion. So like for
Yes.
you to actually be trying to sell yourself on the logic of decision making
Mhm.
makes sense why you're stuck in freeze. Like it makes sense. Like you have to remove the logic and be rooted in the body to then have the intuition. And then that clarity is immediate. I always say when the yes is clear, the no is easy. So it's like the yeses don't always come with a flashing light. The yeses are me like doing the dirty work, like figuring out what are my deal breakers, what are not. Like I have to come to my yeses, but once I know my yeses, like the no's are very apparent. You're
Absolutely.
not always going to be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. It's like, no, you have to figure out what you want.
Yeah,
Um, it's not going to come to you the opposite. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I think about it.
absolutely. I think I if I had to like distill it all down into one word, it would just be trust. Like it creates a lot of self-trust, and that's why the yeses become so loud.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Because then you're like, I'm prepared to, really what you're doing is I'm prepared to hold whatever comes up. Like I do something, I completely fail. What am I really afraid of? I'm
Yeah.
really afraid of how people are going to see me. Why? Because ultimately I want their approval. Why? Because I really want my approval. Okay, well, if I can convince myself that I approve of myself, even when I ultimately fail and make mistakes and am a human being, I don't need that middle piece. Like now I can just take action and I'm not afraid of the failure. And that's kind of what's happening is like you're just attuning to your body enough times so that whatever comes up, it's like, yep, that's okay. Yep, that's okay. And like, let's continue doing that because that's just part of existing and like part of being a human.
Totes, me
When
goats.
it's, and by the way, it's completely, it's super important to give yourself grace if it doesn't feel okay because the
Mm,
reason the way that we get to that point in the first place is that somebody around us, doesn't matter if it was one time and it was serious or if it was a low grade like underlying stress of, I don't know, capitalism or the patriarchy or bad adults in the house modeling, unhealthy relationships, like whatever it was, slow dose for a long time, also taught you that it was unsafe to feel or be like whatever was happening. And it's a learned thing to dissociate. So like if it doesn't feel safe, it's because somebody showed you that it wasn't safe to feel what you were feeling, and you now have to say, that's true. That was shitty. And now I have to rewire all of my neural pathways in my nervous system to teach myself that it is safe to feel those things and to be a human. Like, it's okay to drop a plate. It's okay to whatever. Like, like somebody showed you it wasn't okay, and you have to reteach yourself that it is okay. But then you're down regulating and teaching your body that it's safe to be inhabited, even if it's doing the wrong things.
absolutely. Do you happen to have any stories, whether anonymous or if you can share, like a breathwork success story with one of your clients?
Um, it depends on what you would consider success, because my boyfriend jokes that like I could just as easily be a breakup with your whoever you're with right now, coach, because my clients will be like, "Oh my God, now I feel I felt nothing for this person. Now that I'm in my body, I feel repulsed. Like, oh, I feel completely taken advantage of. I feel angry. I feel used. I feel, and I think there's a huge grieving process. That women don't get like room to experience like especially in romance, but like I think just in anything, like bad thing happens, move on, like yes, break up with them. I yeah, so I would say that's a huge success, just when people are able to see clearly like
Mm,
the fog that they've been living in, whatever perception they've had on themselves changes, and so then their reality kind of unfolds in a different way, where it's like all of a sudden your lens changes. It's like, holy shit, like you're actually a bad person. I don't need this job. I was just afraid of this, and I don't have to be afraid of that. So I'm gonna book a flight. Like, like there's cool things that happen when people start embodying themselves. And so you could say, I mean, I quit, I quit my job. I quit a serious relationship. I lost 80 pounds 10 years ago. I hit burnout. I've reversed chronic illness. I have my favorites are like watching. She just had her second baby. When she started with me, because I started working with women who were chronically undereating, right? So they were like triggering all of these autoimmune diseases and anything that they had like predispositions for. When you put your body in starvation mode for long enough, like these underlying conditions, often like PCOS and things like that, come through. It's the body's way of saying, like, can you please stop overcommitting and people pleasing and shaming yourself? Like, this is really hurting me. And so when she came to me, she was 21 and her doctor was recommending a double hysterectomy. And she has two kids now, but her PCOS was just so bad. Like, um, PCOS, endometriosis, those kinds of conditions, we reverse all the time, especially back when I was doing nutrition stuff, which like my one-on-one clients, we do nutrition and hormone coaching because that's just such a big piece of like, how can you work out if you don't have the energy? Like, it's like a self-fulfilling, like, yeah, okay, I know I need to go to the gym, but like I can barely get up in the morning. So can't we start there? Like, does it really have to be that I'm supposed to be in the gym 3 times a week? Like, that's are you serious? I couldn't order groceries for myself. It's like there's always a thing before it, and then you're talking about the mental load. I think like the success stories are just like learning how to build bandwidth, learning how to put these slow amounts of stress on yourself, but then also with the tool of breath work, accessing your diaphragm is like the only manual thing you can have to like actually put your body in a regulated rest and digest state
that's
just by tuning to your breath. It takes 10 seconds. It's like that's the most badass tool. And if everyone viewed breathing like that, I think we would all breathe a lot differently. But um, it's a success just if you can start doing it, consistently.
Absolutely. And you'd mentioned something. I want to segue into this for the last few minutes. You mentioned that you quit your job and you started a business. And I'm super interested in that too, because you're neurodivergent. You created a business and it's catered to your needs. Can you talk about that? Like, what have you implemented
And
in?
it's cycle synced, and my boyfriend works for me, and
Oh,
I delegate responsibility. Yeah, I mean, I would say like, so I did Cutco sales, like commission sales for 10 years. I quit college. I went to college for 1 year and quit. I was the first person in my family to go to college, but that was huge, just quitting, like knowing I was going to be a failure because I was just a type A perfectionist back then, but I believe that my type A personality, I believe now, was actually just like a coping mechanism. It was just hypervigilance, and like the more I unmask and regulate myself, the more I am not afraid of what happens. So I have much less like need to plan. Yeah, I quit. So I during COVID, everything moved online, and I was just like, if I'm gonna work online, like I'm just gonna work online. I'll do the same thing. I'll just figure it out. And so I was doing meal planning, and I got a corporate job for like 6 months. I had scaled my coaching company to a place that this is right before the burnout happened. I had scaled my company to a place that I was like, yeah, I can do like this other cool remote job that's like corporate, but it's remote. Um, Instantly got an ADA accommodation. So if you're stuck at a job, and you have a period, I can send you the information, for that because I got one just to like be able to time block my day based on the phases of my period and basically sold it to HR as like, and my doctor as like, my fertility is important to me, and the number one contributor to poor fertility is stress. And so when I'm luteal, I don't want to take a call after 3 p.m. And when I'm bleeding, I don't want to take a call before 11. And you have to. Like, you have to sign this. So you can definitely advocate for yourself. But I think it's like part of being neurodivergent, just being like, nope, you know what? Like I committed with myself to no masking. So I'm not going to pretend like this doesn't affect me, and I'm not going to take on the mental load of doing extra work when it is extra work for me. Like, I'm going to give myself an accommodation because I know that my hormones are crazy and I want to support my hormone health. And that means balancing my stress. So if I'm going to do this, which even with the accommodation, I was like, this is fucking insane. I don't know how anybody does it. Get me out. And I was like, nope, nope, nope. But if you are stuck at a job, I understand. I understand the like financial safety aspect of it. And I had to build up my bandwidth just as much to take on the fear of not having enough money because I had absolutely no backup plan, but I just still was like, I'm not going to do it. And I think it requires a strong, safe connection to yourself to feel like you can do it, because it was one of those situations when the yes is clear, then it was easy. And I was like, my time freedom and like my peace of mind is just too much of a priority that I can't compromise on it at all. And
mhm.
I don't know how that means I'll survive in capitalism, but I have to only do work that's aligned with how I want to live and how I want to present myself. And some days it's harder than others. I do have like a bleed guide checklist. I think that balancing my hormones like helps run my business because I have like luteal is great because everyone knows it's so funny how boys say it online. Luteal. The luteal phase. But like I have a checklist because when I'm PMSing, I'm criticizing myself.
Yeah.
So I have like part of my checklist is that like I keep a running list of those criticisms, but I come back to them when I'm bleeding because I know that I'm in a much more reflective, positive place to be able to actually trust my own intuition, that like I understand that the criticism is coming up not because I hate myself, but because I want something good for myself. And like I'm just gonna like, okay, all right, that's a little harsh of a way of saying it, but I'm just gonna put it down over here. And then in a week, I'm gonna look back and say, Okay, I was being a little extra because I was bloated about going to the gym, but I haven't been to yoga in 6 weeks and I would like to book a yoga. And I do my reflection on the month and my planning for the month while I'm bleeding so that all of that gets done. And like I have a cadence to living my life that like unfortunately, maybe one day we'll be in a place of late stage capitalism where everyone is like niched in a weird way that feels empowering to them and like you'll be like everyone can just normally live their life around their period. But I do think there's a couple of things that everyone can do that will like help them feel more sane and really your follicular phase isn't to like do all the shit that you haven't done yet all month. It's like not meant to be a 4 day catch up sprint. It's meant to be like flow state, connecting to your best parts of yourself because like you tied up loose ends when you were luteal and you did your speaking gigs when you were ovulating. And if you can tell by my skin, I book all my podcasts while I'm in this post bleed, like glow. And
I
I
love
don't talk
it.
to anybody when I'm luteal for 2 weeks. Nobody's seeing my troll face. Like, absolutely no. I just think it's a little bit more aligned to the way I want to live my life. And it does mean taking on a healthy dose of like, I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. Um, but I try to just embrace that by returning to the breath and returning to the body. And clearly, there's something to it because it does work.
Yeah. That's what's beautiful. I think, I think that what's important to know is if you're considering working for yourself, you should set your business up in a way that puts you first and everything will fall into place. It's so scary at first to be like, I can really ask, like for me, I don't start working until 1 p.m. And in my
Mhm.
initial years, that was horrifying. I was like, oh my God, no one's gonna hire me because I don't work until 1. I refuse to work a weekend, but I'm booked and busy. You're booked and busy. You
Yeah.
get to put yourself first and it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely there. I mean, I probably went years. I have this tradition, God bless Shonda. Like I watch Grey's Anatomy every Friday morning when it's running, with my coffee and like I just think about how I could be in an office right now. Like, and for a long time I had guilt about it, but like that was just like my weekly like moment with myself to be like, you don't even really want to watch TV during the day, but you can. All right. Like you like usually I'm at the park or walking through a field or getting a taco somewhere. And like that's how I want to be spending 80% of my time. And so I just remind myself with my like in the middle of the day TV that like, okay, you could be at an office. You're allowed to not feel guilty about this. Like you can do whatever you want. You have free will.
Yeah.
It's terrifying even if you're in an office because then you're wondering if all of your time is being spent properly. Like I think that's a valid consideration. I also think we're in a really shitty state that like if you have the privilege to even consider it, you should consider it. Um, I talk about privilege a lot. Like, how are you going to stand on business if you're like, oh, well, I just have to, if you could better your situation, you should better your situation so that you can pour back into your communities. And a lot of people can't even fathom being able to quit their job or their third job or their second job. So like I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that I work for myself and don't have kids and don't have a husband and don't do laundry or take out the trash. I don't do that shit. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna feel bad. I felt bad about it for a long time on social media too, and I burnt out on making content because I was like, this is fake because I don't have these problems anymore. Like I'm making relatable content, but I don't have these problems anymore. And at some point, my content had to shift into like, yeah, I don't have these problems anymore. Like
No
it's
problem.
not relatable. It's
Yeah.
yeah, like it's not relatable, but it should be. And that's why I don't have a regular job. That's why I'm doing this.
Absolutely. Well, I freaking love this for you. I'm glad you're here. And now that you are here, I would like everybody to know that Olivia, you'll be coming into the soft app. We're doing twice monthly breathwork classes?
Yeah,
Okay, yep.
yeah.
Twice
I
month.
could see, yeah, based on how attendance goes, like you guys pull up to class. Obviously, I know there's recordings and y'all have lives, but I think the classes are really cool because it's not like a traditional yoga. I'm like yapping and and so like you're learning stuff real time. You can ask questions. I would love to see your faces and get to know you guys. It's obviously easier to run class. A group class is like much more how I'm feeling that day, but I'm taking everyone into consideration on the call, and it's just cool to get together. Um, it does well, we could scale it.
Yeah, and it won't be recorded. So in terms of you wanting to see people's
Oh
faces,
yeah, so be on the class.
absolutely.
Fabulous.
And also, you also do one-on-one? Can you describe what it is like to work with you one-on-one?
Yeah, I would say I'd say the difference is like a group class you're showing up kind of like I've been driving in the car yesterday, so I don't know what we're about to do in an hour. We're gonna like, group classes are a little bit more based on how I'm doing. One-on-one is much more based on how you're doing. And so we're like you said, in that one session right away, like not only was your pain going away, but it was like relatable emotionally. I would you could call it a gift, you could call it your own gift. I think really what we're doing is I'm facilitating helping you tap into your own intuition. And so you're able to then say, like, okay, there's something going on in this hip. I wouldn't have known anything about what's going on besides just to tell you what the hip means. But like, you're the one that's getting into your hip. I think that's what we're teaching in one-on-one is really how to like, okay, let's pay attention there. You got tension there, let's pay attention there. In group class, we're going based on my tension, but in one-on-one, it's really based on your personal lived everything. Um, and I do have a retreat in the Hamptons on Labor Day weekend. So if you're like kind of curious about what it would be like to work one-on-one, but you don't want to commit, I do little call packs. You could get 10 at a time, or you could come to that.
That's cool. I mean, especially because we have a lot of softies. I haven't come up with that yet on the East Coast. So
Yeah,
fantastic.
I've never been to the Hamptons, but I was like, you know what? This is so cool. I got a cool house with like a gym, and it's gonna be like neurodivergent, teaching people with like sensory and executive dysfunction how to meal prep and like make healthy, easy like snack plates and good ideas for staying well fed and like pouring into your body that way. I'm from the deep south. Like I have a big passion for cooking, and so healthy food was like always, I felt like I had to choose between my lifestyle and healthy.
Mhm.
And so I really mastered the food game for neurodivergent people that like to cook, like to eat, but have like the weird, like, my groceries used to go bad
Yeah.
because I would never get around to cooking them. And then like the leftovers tasted funny. Like I've perfected it, I think. So we're doing a lot of that. And then everyone will have a self-guided workbook. So in addition to the like breath work and the movement modalities, we'll have like there's going to be a period of introspection and then some talks on the nervous system. It's going to be a cool thing.
Ooh,
I think it's the perfect like get your feet wet in what I'm doing if you have any curiosity about it.
that's very interesting. I'm gonna talk to you after this about that. Yeah, more on
We
that.
might be able to set something up with your community. I would love to be able to give. I had like the first month of pre-sale, I did like a if you come with a friend, you get a discount. So we could do
Ah,
something with your community. Absolutely.
ooh, okay, y'all hear that? That's good to know.
Small group though. Only there's only 8 seats left.
Oh,
It's gonna
okay.
be August 29th through 31st, Labor Day weekend.
August,
So
right?
everyone that has the Monday off will still have their Monday off. August 29th, 30th, and 31st. It's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday departure. You still have Monday off. You're not
Oh,
rushing back home.
yeah, that's fantastic. One last question. Does anyone have
Yeah.
questions? Any questions for
Yeah.
me?
Trauma, hypermobility, chronic illness, IBS, gene mutations, stress.
And feel free to unmute your mic if you want to say it out loud too, or just write in the chat box.
Yeah.
Oh, Emily, I see you. Feel free to unmute, and I'm going to mute so you can have the floor.
You just said like all of my keywords. So I have hypermobility and I have endo.
Uh-huh.
I have fairly severe mixed pain. So I
Uh-huh.
have like very legit acute tissue problems, but then I also
Uh-huh.
have like sympathetically maintained terrible guts, sleep,
Uh-huh.
attention, etc.
Mhm.
Do you work with a lot of people with hypervigilance and mixed pain? Because I was kind of publicly shamed in another call about hypervigilance on accident um, because they didn't set any ground rules about what to bring up. And I named one of my symptoms, which apparently is very triggering to a lot of people, but like that's just like the literal medical name. And I don't know how to explain why
Well,
I have
so
to like. legit be vigilant, but not
Yeah.
hyper vigilant. So that's like my challenge.
Well, before you even said you were ashamed, I was gonna say like not even just a connection. I would say probably most people with hypervigilance experience pain in some capacity.
Yeah.
So like then they're getting butthurt about it doesn't surprise me because they probably have a lot of hypervigilance in ways that are blind spots that are
Oh yeah, that's
manifested
exactly what
as
happened.
pain. Like a lot of emotional, here's a good example. Like I can't access that I hate the good parent because the good parent is so good that that hate of whatever I can't see is being suppressed so hard that it's now come out in via pain in my body physically. So like a lot of the like just you knowing that hypervigilance is a symptom is probably more self-awareness around the root of your pain. I would say you're pulling on a thread, like they're definitely connected.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had like a lot of experience working with people who have like acute,
Oh,
very like acute serious problems, but then also hypervigilance because like I have both learned pain and like acute problems. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
not
yeah.
all of it can just like I can't just do the Sarno method and pretend nothing is wrong because I have very
Right.
specific instructions on when I have to report to the ER, right?
Right.
And like
Okay,
no
yeah.
one wants me to ignore anything.
Right. So to answer your question, yes. I would say that was kind of my vague answer was that pretty much everyone I've worked with has both. My personal story, just because I don't like to share other people's personal stories unless they know. My personal story when I got TSS, that my body knew before I knew that there was a tampon in me, and it tried to like push it out, and that expelled my IUD and then also herniated my discs. So I was in real pain, but then my adrenals like got trapped in being in pain all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I even still have phantom pain. And like everyone told me my real pain was psychosomatic as well. So I've danced that line between like I did a lot of Louise Hay, like psychotherapy, Dispenza, meditations. I would equally like I would put as much in Dispenza as the physical work that I was doing because the placebo effect is like a 30% swing. I believe in the effects of the mind. Yeah. I believe in the effects of the mind, but real pain is real pain and like real protocol for physical pain is like you have to take a certain you have to have like very clear process for the physical pain. And then I would just say it's like a slow period of please chill, gathering awareness around your emotional pain. So, like finding the connections without further exacerbating your physical pain.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
I would love, like, I'm definitely curious about, like, we could definitely go down a rabbit hole if you want to DM me on Instagram or in the app. I don't know if there's going to be a feature where you can chat, but we can definitely chat about it.
Yeah, you can totally DM in the app. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll try and DM you then. Thank you.
Perfect.
And Ellie had a question too.
Yeah. Hi, Olivia.
Hi.
I am gonna try. I'm gonna try to make this as succinct and clear as possible because there's a lot going on. So I'm a person that I'm very. I don't know if I'm have always been some level of dissociated, but it kind
Mhm.
of takes a lot for me. Like my body, I feel like tries to get my attention, and it usually takes to the extreme where I'm like, oh, I think something's wrong. And I don't know if I'm just like suppressing the physical pain or if I get used to it. That does happen a lot. I think like from ADHD, I tend to have like an object permanence issue. Will things just kind of fade into the background? And I think the same thing happens in my physical body. I just get used to it. In the last like 5 months, though, I've kind of been experiencing completely new, like I have a lot of soreness everywhere. I feel like I'm like 80 years old every day, and I've lost a lot of weight from stress mainly because I do feel like I've been eating more than usual, even though I wasn't great at eating before. And I know like my mentally and emotionally, I've been wrecked. So I don't even know where to start in terms of trying to like whittle down where to even begin to fix things like that in and of itself feels overwhelming because it could be so many different things. I don't really know where the root of anything starts. And, it's just like a lot going on and I get overwhelmed and overstimulated and then I just want to take a nap. I just got back from a week-long trip where I was driving a ton and I expected to be super sore from it, but I actually felt better driving 10 hours in a day than when I got home. Now all the pain is back. So it's just a lot going on. And I'm curious like what your approach is when there seems like there's so many different possibilities of where things are coming from. It could be a combination of things in terms of like a guidance and direction on where to start or how to teach ways to like locate the sources and the roots for these things to even begin to work on them. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. I love it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna like think of it in a few parts. So first part of what you're saying, like it's very relatable and it's not funny, but like, when you described everything that you're experiencing, it's literally the definition of object permanence. I see a lot of parallels when I look at the symptoms of like what does it look like to be neurodivergent in the brain? What does it look like to have CPTSD? What does it look like to have chronic illness of any different kinds? Like a lot of it is under this umbrella of root cause being chronic dysregulated nervous system. And the way you describe, like, I don't even know how to start because it's so overwhelming and it's like this giant hill. That's object permanence, right? It's like, it's not right in front of me. It's too big. It's going to go to the corners of my mind. It's going to go in this box with a lid on it. And that really parallels, like, when you're talking about suppression or dissociation. So all that to say that, like, based on everything that you just said, I would say it sounds a lot like there's some emotional something because you're getting you're getting that feedback from your body now, right? I would say just as a side note that like the long drive example is a really good example of like I need to dissociate because I have to make this 10-hour drive. There's like no way around it. I'm not going to end up not making it. So time to drive. Tomorrow I'll feel the pain of it. It's not like you made a conscious choice. That's just like the process of like, okay, pain not be here now, pain be here later. That's literally like object permanence and how we manage and compartmentalize in our brains. To answer your other like kind of the end of that question is like, where do you even start when it's so overwhelming? I'd have kind of a twofold answer. So answer one is come to class. That's the short answer. But the longer answer, I know you guys are wrapping. I'll just show you this little chart I made like years ago. This is the root of when I rebranded. Before I was high functioning burnout, I was empowered patterns. Now I sell it as a course. Empowered patterns is this like cycle of knowing that your gut health feeds your mental health. Like 90% of your happy hormones and like the foundation of your mental health. And the way your mind communicates with your body, threats and danger signals. Your mind feeds your gut. Your gut feeds your mind feeds your beliefs. So like based on the state of your gut, that will be the state of your mental health. And the state of your mental health is how you talk to yourself. And when you have less bandwidth, those like myelinated neural pathways that are myelinated to say all the like scary things and all the overwhelming things and all the burnout things that like you can't do this and whatever else, that it's your belief system. Your belief system is ever changing based on how much bandwidth you have. So how much you can talk to yourself and reinforce those beliefs, and your beliefs drive your actions, and your actions feed your gut. So like that's the cycle: gut, beliefs, action. And so I would say, how do you change the state of your gut to then change the state of your mind to then change and reinforce new beliefs? You got to do the action. And so like something that's really low bandwidth, low barrier to entry, people come to class and they're like, it's confusing because like I feel like I'm using muscles and I feel like I can like feel different parts in my body, but I feel so relaxed. And that's literally the point, is that you're like just finding this really low barrier to entry way of regulating your body, being in your body, existing here in this space time, learning how to detach from those old beliefs and do a new action that resets the trajectory of that cycle for you. And the more you do it, the better myelinated those neural pathways become, so that it becomes easier to do. But it's never going to be second nature. People expect once you know better, you do better. You literally don't. You do whatever you have the deepest myelinated neural pathways for. And so if yours are dissociation and disconnection, it could just be like, yes, your body is sending you on this program, but now it's counterintuitive. It's not a coping mechanism that's helping you anymore. It's hurting you. So you have to find ways to sneak in like these loving moments with yourself to replenish your bandwidth.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
thank
feel
you.
for you.
Yeah.
I've fucking
I
been
know.
there. It's not easy. And like
Yeah.
it's easy to say, like once you have the habits, it's not easy when you like feel like you know what you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing it. But I would say like a tip around that is like do less. Where can you do less so that you can carve out 10 minutes for yourself? Even if you can't come to class, can you carve out 10 minutes, not an hour, and cut out something that you were going to do and give yourself 50 minutes back on the back end? You know, like give yourself girl math.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm at a stage where I will happily cut out whatever I need to cut out to make room for what matters.
You could totally read, I'm trying not to read books written by men right now.
Relatable.
Gabor Mate has a really good book though, When the Body Says No. It's literally what you're saying, right? It's like yeah, but your body is at some point gonna hit its breaking point to say like, no, like you're too stressed, you're too disconnected, you can't be on autopilot. Because the thing is, like, when you are disconnected, it's a sneaky dissociation is sneaky because it feels so good to just zoom out and be in a scroll hole or go to sleep. That's like my cue if I'm sleeping all the time. I'm diagnosed bipolar and borderline personality and pretty much everything else at this point. But like dissociation is sneaky because it feels nice, but it puts your body into a functional freeze state so that you're not digesting, your mood's not regulating, you're not getting recovery in your sleep. Like when your body thinks it's being chased by a tiger or functional freeze, it's like we're breathing, but like there's a thing hovering right over us ready to kill us. It's not thinking take a shit, get a period, feel hungry. It's just like surviving until it
Yeah.
can feel safe again. And if you're never down regulating to feel safe, your body's never going back into that rest and digest mode, which is
Yeah.
why I'm like movement and breath is the first way to like instantly put your body in a different state.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that hits. Yeah. Thank you.
Of
I will
course.
definitely be in class.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
When is the first class for Angels Asking? And I'm
Let's
terrible
see. I think it's next week. I want to say, I'll
Tuesday.
just look right now.
Okay.
Our first class is Tuesday, the 27th at 5 Eastern.
Yes, excellent. Let me put this in my own
5
calendar.
p.m.
What was that?
5 p.m. Eastern. And it's in there for 90 minutes.
Excellent. And this first one for anyone listening will be I will record the first one to add it to the app, but after that I'm not going to record them. It's that way you can just show up and experience it live.
And you can be camera off. Obviously, it like helps if you have a question, like to be able to see what you were doing. But I didn't care if you feel more comfortable, cam off. I'm gonna be where you can see me, and I'm gonna be guiding you with my voice as well. It's pretty follow along. Like it's super easy. Don't feel intimidated by the strength training title. That's just a means of like reinforcing these neural pathways. You're teaching yourself, ooh, that feels scary. Okay, I did it. Now it feels a little bit safer. And next time it's a little bit safer. PJs, yoga pants, think like you're going to be stretching, but it's going to be more activating for your breath.
Yeah. And it was like yoga mat too, or I did it in bed
Yeah, floor. If you can be on floor, you can see this is my messy bed and this is my messy table. And I like have this tiny space in my floor that I use. Ideally you find a little space in the floor that you could, even if you don't have a mat, um, that you can use. You'll be laying on your back some, you'll be on hands and knees some, you'll be standing some.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you. I'm so excited.
you have a profile in the Soft app now, so I'll gather all of your information. Just send it to me at some point in the next 48 hours to add it to your profile so people know how to connect with you on your socials and one-on-one. Yeah, and that's it. I want to say, am I missing something? Oh, Emily, if you're still listening, you will be able to DM Olivia, but give it about 24 hours. We just want to make sure you're all in the app and set up and onboarded and stuff first. So yeah. All right.
Um,
Excellent.
yes, okay. I'm seeing that comment too about if you miss it. Obviously you guys are getting a steal of a deal doing it within the app. Because you guys have a great community going and Brittney-Elizabeth is incredible. I do have small group classes that are a slightly higher price point, but we can work something out, BE, for a discount for everybody as well.
Excellent. Yeah. And are you committed to Tuesday? You want to try different days in the future?
No, we can find what works for your community, and if it's a work, then we make it work. I
Oh,
love it.
excellent. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to press stop recording now. And here we go.